Our scripture this morning is from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. It says, After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, Where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all of the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. After they had heard the king, they went on their way and saw the star they had seen when it rose, and went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. And they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So today probably yesterday I started thinking about this particular thing. We have some neighbors on the way home that still have Christmas lights all over the house and the fence and stuff. And so I guess I'm troubled, and I have a question of how long is it proper for people to keep those lights up? And I know it's none of my business. They should be able to do what they want. I'm not really bothered that much, but it just crossed my mind. And so I wondered, do they leave them up a certain period of time? Is there a rule? I don't think there really is, but maybe some of us have rules. Or do they leave it till they basically wear out or break or quit working? And I know there's some other houses along the way home that in the past have had lights and they're still hanging there, but they're not on anymore. So I don't know, maybe different people have different ways of handling that, but it sort of got my attention. And then for the most part, people have moved on from Christmas by this week. But I do wonder why I keep getting those after Christmas sale emails every day. So those bother me maybe more than the lights. Some of them even want to remind me it's only 353 days till Christmas, and I figure out how to block those at some point. I won't watch them anymore. I guess there's plenty of time, though, if in case the date or number of days worries you, and maybe you're still getting some of those emails about the special bargains you can have and keep in the closet until next year, and then maybe forget to give them to anybody. I don't know, but that's what I worry about. It's like the lights are sort of a persistent reminder to me about the Christmas season that I see on the way home, and they're almost as persistent as the email seems to be from Amazon and several other people that evidently I've done business with, or they thought I would do business with them. And our scripture this morning, as we're reading it, we realize a couple of quick things like, okay, they're in a house now. We don't know how much time has really passed, but it seems to be a little while. And all the visitors that were that special night that we just celebrated a couple of weeks ago, the cows are gone. They're not in the manger anymore. They seem to have moved on with their life some period of time afterwards. And so we don't know how much has changed, but I think it just, like us, Joseph and Mary moved on to something more normal, more expected. A lot of the people went back home after the census, so there's a lot of relatives in town. So maybe they're staying with the relatives, and he's working. Maybe they're building a house. We don't know that they're destitute still. When they got there and they couldn't afford to do some things because it was a long trip. They're paying their taxes. Something has happened that they now, they've gone to a normal pattern, whatever a normal pattern is for a young couple that's not been married very long. It sort of changes a lot. Maybe you can think back to those days. And then they also have things like they're now in another city, so there's differences there than what Mary was used to, what Joseph was used to. And then you have a child in the house. That means every day is going to be different somehow, at least in my experience. So they've moved on as a couple and going about life. So our scripture picked up, and we have new characters that a lot of times we connect directly to the Christmas story, and it is the Christmas story, but we don't know how big a separation. These new characters are coming in, and it says they're magi from the east, and we're not going to go into a lot of the normal stuff we might talk about magi, except to say that they've come a long way, about somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 miles. That's a long way to go on horse, camel, and walking. There's going to be a rather large group because these magi themselves are, well, they're priests as far as we would know, or they're equivalent to high-end advisors to kings. They're astrologers, all kinds of things. So some of them are history. We know that they're watching the sky. Because it says that when they come into town, they say the reason they're there is because they saw the light that represented a new king in Israel, the birth of a new child king in Israel. So they go to the most likely place when they get to Jerusalem and say, well, let's go over to the king's palace and let's ask. That's the best place to find out. Isn't that where you'd expect to find a king, is where the king lives in Jerusalem? So they go there, and it's not the right house. And the person who lives there is, well, he's not exactly the most welcoming person normally, but these people sort of have their own army with them, so maybe there's a little fear there. And then they just say that, well, we saw this star and we've come to worship him, so they're not there to threaten the kingdom, but they are there in a way to threaten the kingship of Herod. Now, I've thought about particular times, and we went to celebrate with Jason his birthday yesterday, and when he was that was James. When he was a little bitty boy, we went up and saw we were living in Denver. We drove into the Rocky Mountains, and we went up there with blankets and we lay on the ground, and you could just see stars. It's sort of like out near my house, if you don't include Rome, the glow of Rome, if you look the other way, you see more stars, but up on the mountains in the Rockies, it was just everywhere, and then the meteors would come across, and the whole place would light up. And we were way above the tree line on the top of the mountain on Loveland Pass, and it was cold, but it was beautiful. And you look at it, and I don't know, when I was laying there looking, I felt very small. There was from edge to edge, as far as I could see, just lights. And some of them were little tiny dim lights, and some brilliantly bright. And when those comets would come over, or meteors would come over, those sudden flashes that would get your attention. Still made me feel even smaller. So here we have people that saw a special light in the sky and respond. Don't know much about those guys, except that they seem to be tenacious about coming that far. Their tradition says when they saw a particular light, maybe it's intensity, maybe it's color, I don't know what the criteria would have been, but if it was in a particular region of the sky, they would say that a king had been born into that area. We don't know how many trips they might have made, but we know they make this one from our scripture. I don't know, just a simple new light in the sky. To even notice it, either had to be a really special light or they had to be really, really observant to determine that something new had happened. Now, the background on Herod himself, he is a little bit of a paranoid Roman-appointed governor. So he's not the real king, but he is given the title King of the Jews. His job is to collect taxes and to keep the peace. If he fails to collect taxes or he fails to keep the peace, Rome will replace him very quickly. So he's always in a balance. Now, he has this sort of a mixed up connection. If you read about him, you'll find that he's known as a great builder. He built cities, he built temples, he built palaces and forts. He even built the temple for the Jews that Jesus will go to as a child and as an adult to worship his Father. So he builds a lot of stuff. He has this good heritage, but at the same time, he's paranoid or even has any hint of causing a problem in his reign. He takes care of it, which means he kills lots and lots of people. It's not even a hesitation on his part. In fact, he's known to have killed 3 of his own sons and his favorite wife and her mother. I don't know. Can you still call your favorite? I don't know. I have trouble saying, wow, his favorite wife somehow said something or did something. So Herod hears this and he's this message, and he calls these people together. He's disturbed, and all of the city with him, because when Herod's upset, somebody's probably going to die. So everybody's upset because he's not worried about where he takes people out. So he gets this group together, and I found it interesting. He is half Jewish according to the heritage that we can read about him, but he's not really active as a Jew. He doesn't celebrate as a Jew. He doesn't know Jewish law. So he brings a group of people and he says the people's high priest and people. So he doesn't even, the way it's described, he controls these people. He lets them rule the Jews to keep the Jewish congregation or people happy in that city. When he's upset and disturbed, he brings people in. I don't know if they were scared when they came, but they seem to know the answer. Very quickly, they can say, they can tell the prophecies, what it says in the Jewish scripture, that, hey, there's when the Messiah comes, because that's what he asked him. He says, where's your Messiah going to be born? Tell me about that. And they give him quick answers. And now here's what really bothers me about their answer. We know from all through scripture, they're always looking for the Messiah to come. So when Herod, who is known to get upset for anybody threatening his reign, anybody who might displace him as the governor, as the king of the Jews, he kills them off, then why would the chief priest and the other teachers of the law, why would they tell them the exact truth? What does that say about their view of the Messiah? Are they happy and comfortable? They fear Herod so much that they're not going to take action to protect the one they've been expecting for a couple thousand years? I don't know. Bad things happen to people who don't keep Herod happy. So maybe that's as simple as it gets. So they tell the truth about where the Messiah is going to be born. Herod passes along the details to these visitors. He's probably sounding very smart. He's gotten the answers, and he encourages them to be diligent in their search. And he says, please let me know where he is, because I'd like to worship him too. And I wonder what Herod's poker face was like. It must have been pretty good. I imagine he didn't have any waver in his voice. He sounded like, when he would say things, he probably sounded like he meant it. So I want to go and worship. And they didn't say that they had any doubts. Now we know that they're warned in a dream. So he must have been a pretty good actor. He didn't have any hint of malice, and so they take the information and they go, and the star reappears, and it leads them to the place they're going to go. Some pretty amazing stuff that we don't know much about, and you can watch all kinds of specials about the star and what it was and what it could have been, and the people that do all the way back to saying events that happened through the solar system that they might have been, but all I can tell you is it was something that caught their attention. They realized that God had sent a king into the world. Now, didn't say that they had the same views as we have today, but it's a change. Now, the second thing I worry about with the priests and all the high officials that are the Jewish leadership, the Magi, these visitors, head out the next day, and you don't hear that they sent any servants to go and see where the child was born. They're dependent on them sending word back. The priest and the leadership and they don't go to check out the prophecy themselves. They could go and say, no, this isn't the right one. It's just a normal kid. No, they didn't do that. They didn't go themselves. Again, what is their view of the coming Messiah if they don't even go or lead these foreigners to find this child they're looking for? It's about 6 miles. Okay, 6 miles from me, I'm going to be pretty winded. 6 miles back in that day when you walked everywhere, that wasn't too much. I mean, a little bit of up and downhill, rocky. It was only 6 miles, and they don't make any effort as the people who were most observant in trying to determine when the Messiah would come. So here we have, the story tells us that basically Mary and Jesus are fixing to have a sort of an interesting day. Doesn't say that Joseph was there, so maybe he was out doing work. He's got a house payment to make or rent payment to make, so he's out and about. And these special visitors come to 6 miles, and Mary suddenly has these strange-looking guests on her doorstep. They bow down and worship the child. I don't know. I would imagine they prayed for a blessing on the child. They're coming as observers. I mean, it's a long way to come to see a baby that is king. It's not like they're raising any new business. This is a long way from their home. They bow down, then they open up their wallets, so to speak, and they give these named gifts that we find in Scripture, and they're of great value. We don't know how big a value, but it was something to make your life a lot more comfortable if someone gave you this kind of gift. I don't know. We don't know if Joseph and Mary were destitute, but man, getting this kind of gift would sort of make your life easier. Suddenly having money in the bank, so to speak, in your savings account, it could make you feel pretty good. I tried to imagine Joseph comes home after wherever he is, out working somewhere, and Mary's doing the normal things a couple might do. So how was your day? And he said, I still got some work over in that new suburb on the other side of town. So I'm going to be going back and forth there a while. And I said, well, how was your day? And she just sort of points at this stuff and bags sitting over here on a table or on their bed or something. And he says, what's that? And she says, open it. And can you imagine the shock? Somebody hands somebody a bag of cash and where did this come from? Did it fall off a cart or something? And she said, no, we had these visitors. See, I sort of picture that they didn't stay very long. I have a feeling that the Magi, knowing that they needed to move on, didn't want to draw attention to this particular household, but that's my guess. But suddenly they have this comfort, not knowing that they're going to need it. It's a gift that's going to come to them that gives them a resource to respond to another set of dreams. So the couple have this fantastic blessing and a sense of security, and they have this wealth that had to have raised their day. I think that we suppose that our gift giving at Christmas, it comes from this part of Matthew's gospel where these foreign guys, these priests, these teachers, they come and they give gifts to the future king. And we give gifts to one another, and used to you would do things in the name of Christ, and maybe there's some things you do in your life that you give to certain causes and things, and you do it because of Jesus in your life. But I know that as Christians in our household celebration with family, it hit me that we write in the from box, we write our name, and then we write the person that we want to give a gift to, and then they come back and thank us. But for Christmas, maybe I should be helping focus people on the generosity of Christ's gift for us. Now, I'm not trying to make a hurtful thing. I mean, it's what we've always done. It's just I'm not sure we always consider how that gift giving to a king and what the king gives us back is not more important. As I thought about it, the gift we receive from God through Jesus Christ means we carry around the good news in our memory, hopefully in our actions. Sometimes the idea is that we know that Jesus is called light to the world. That's part of what our singing was today, the light of the world. And we have a little bit of that light of the world in us. So it's not about Christmas celebrations or what we write on the cards. It's about making sure that we also give our good thoughts about, hey, we're able to love you and give to you and include Jesus in that somehow. But we're not trying to correct how we celebrate because we're past Christmas and we have another 353 days to think about how we would do that maybe next year. The light that called the foreigners to travel all those miles, to come all the way across the continent, man, that's a long way to go to see a child king. It's a long way to go to come and end up sharing part of your wealth with the family. Now, I don't know, if Jesus had been in that palace, I wonder, would they have given those gifts? Maybe. Maybe not. It may be that they saw a need, that was why they were there. It's about being influenced by the light. So as carriers of that good news means that we contain a little bit of light in us. I remembered an old ad, and I used to see it all the time, and it may be still on in some places. Remember the Motel 6 ads, and the last thing he always said is, "We'll leave the light on for you"? I didn't do his voice very well there, did I? Our job as Christians is to have the light in us to show up. I don't know, the light that I want you to think about, and maybe help it to show up, is the light that changed our lives in some way. This is as Christians. The light that gives us hope, especially in the past, gave us hope, and maybe even in our lives today gives you some hope. A light that awakened in us the truth of the need for salvation, and then ultimately salvation itself, that came into our world through a child. Very weird, unorthodox sounding things. A child that is a king worth checking out, worth making the trip for. I don't know, we can't let this season change, where we suddenly change and we go into normal things, and that we put away the light of God like we would put away our Christmas decorations. It's not a season of putting Christ away. It's a season that Christmas that renews our lens, that lets us shine the light that comes from the good news, or Emmanuel, in us. I know it's a sort of twisted sounding little thing. Jesus comes as the light of the world. We respond. We end up with a little bit of light in us that encourages us and does all those things that are positive for us. Sometimes it makes us do hard things. God sent the light of the world, and we participate in that. I don't know, I keep being stuck on why the religious leaders failed to respond to this Messiah as maybe there. They may not believe it, but it seems like they'd at least check it out. They don't respond. Okay, they have a king of the Jews right now, but a real king, the one who's in the bloodline of David, is supposed to have been born in Bethlehem. What's more important than trying to respond to that? Maybe they were serving people in the temple. Maybe they were worried about King Herod. Maybe they were just too self-focused to worry about engaging like the Magi did. Now, the question I would hope to ask our congregation as Christians is, how are you experiencing the light of the gospel of Jesus reflected in you lately? Is Christmas, now that it's over and we can rest a little bit, is it a time that you can clean the lenses on like the old kerosene lanterns and had to clean the globe? And do you take this time of year to renew where you shine more, or allow God to shine through you more? I believe that God expects His children to leave the lights on. The celebration of the good news is not seasonal, it's eternal. It's not something we do just part of the year. It's supposed to be something we celebrate and enjoy and share all the year. Now, if you don't know that you've had an encounter with Jesus, maybe you should think about responding and visiting with Jesus, and perhaps asking if you can journey a while or for the rest of your life and see how that goes. Maybe you're worried about your light is a little dim, like some of the little stars I could see in Colorado that just were, well, normally in the city I would never even know they were there. It doesn't mean that they were wrong, because I could see them. They were lit, and it may just be that in our hearts, for our light to increase, is just to be able to, well, reset a little bit, to ask God to also visit our hearts and renew us. Okay, Jesus is born, now what? And I think it's simple. We leave the light on, or at least let the light shine. All glory be to God.